Emily's scream tore through the autumn air as the 120-pound Rottweiler launched himself at her baby. His jaws opened wide, revealing teeth like daggers. Everything she'd feared for 18 months was happening right before her eyes, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. But this moment of terror would reveal a truth she never saw coming. If you love stories about the incredible bond between humans and animals, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another heartwarming tale. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen curtains, casting golden streaks across the worn hardwood floor. Emily stood at the sink, her hands submerged in soapy water, but her mind was elsewhere. Through the window she could see the backyard, the swing set Jack had built last summer, the flower beds she'd neglected since Lucas was born, and Max lying in his usual spot beneath the oak tree. Max, the name alone sent a familiar knot of anxiety twisting in her chest. The massive Rottweiler had been part of their lives for 6 years, longer than her marriage, longer than this house had been home. She remembered the day Jack brought him back from the breeder, a bundle of black and bronze fur, with paws too big for his body and eyes that already held an ancient wisdom. "He'll protect us," Jack had said, cradling the puppy against his chest. "Rottweilers are loyal to the end." And Max had been exactly that, loyal, obedient, perfectly trained. He'd never shown aggression toward them, never disobeyed a command, never given them a single reason to doubt him. Until Lucas came along.
Emily dried her hands on a dish towel, her gaze drifting to the baby monitor on the counter. Lucas was still napping, his soft breathing crackling through the speaker. 18 months old, her miracle baby, after years of trying, after doctors had said it might never happen. And now, every day felt like walking a tightrope between joy and terror. "You're overthinking again," Jack's voice came from behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Max loves Lucas." "I know," she whispered. But did she? Could she really know what went on in the mind of a 120-pound guard dog when a tiny, unpredictable toddler pulled his ears, stepped on his tail, shrieked without warning? Dr. Morrison, their veterinarian, had been blunt 3 months ago during Lucas's checkup. They'd brought Max along, seeking reassurance. "Max is exceptionally well-trained," he'd said, running his hands over the muscular frame. "But you need to understand what you have here. This isn't a golden retriever. Rottweilers were bred to guard, to protect, to make split-second decisions about threats. He weighs more than 100 pounds, and his jaw strength is immense. Any mistake, any misread signal from Lucas—" He hadn't finished the sentence. He didn't need to. Emily hadn't slept since then. The incident 3 months ago hadn't helped. Lucas, newly walking and fearless in the way only toddlers can be, had stumbled and cracked his head against the corner of the coffee table. His scream had been piercing, primal, filled with pain and shock. Max had materialized out of nowhere. One moment he'd been in the other room, the next he was standing over Lucas, his body rigid, his lips pulled back to reveal teeth that looked like they belonged to a wolf. A low, rumbling growl emanated from his chest, not playful, not uncertain, but deadly serious. Emily had frozen, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The growl wasn't directed at Lucas. It was directed at her. at her as she tried to reach her crying baby. "Max, down!" Jack had shouted, and the dog had obeyed immediately, backing away, his eyes clearing. But the message had been sent, received, and filed away in Emily's mind. Max thought he was protecting Lucas, even from them. "What if he thinks we're hurting him?" Emily had asked Jack that night, lying in the darkness of their bedroom. "What if Lucas falls again, or we have to discipline him, and Max decides we're a threat?" "He won't," Jack had said, but even he hadn't sounded convinced. Now, on this late afternoon in early autumn, Emily watched Jack fire up the grill on the back patio. It was supposed to be a relaxing evening. Burgers, the crisp air, Lucas playing in the yard. Normal, safe. But Max had been off all day. He'd refused his breakfast, which never happened. He paced the perimeter of the yard, pausing every few steps to stare at the ground near the flower beds, his ears swiveling, his body tense. He whined, soft, anxious sounds that made Emily's skin prickle. "Something's wrong with him," Emily had told Jack. "He's probably just caught a scent, raccoon maybe, or a rabbit." But it didn't feel like that. It felt like a warning. The sound of Lucas's laughter pulled her from her thoughts. He'd woken from his nap and was toddling across the patio, his chubby legs unsteady, his blue shirt already stained of juice from his afternoon snack. His diaper puffed out beneath his shorts, making his waddle even more pronounced. "Mama!" he squealed, pointing at a butterfly that danced past. Emily's heart swelled. God, she loved him so much it physically hurt sometimes, a sweet ache that lived permanently in her chest. "Stay close, buddy," Jack called out, not looking up from the grill.
But Lucas had other plans. His attention had shifted to Max, who still stood rigid near the flower bed, his massive head lowered, his gaze fixed on something in the overgrown grass. "Doggy!" Lucas shouted with delight. "Doggy!" Emily's breath caught. "Lucas, no! Come to Mama!" But 18-month-olds don't understand fear. They only understand love and curiosity and the overwhelming desire to hug every soft thing they see. Lucas's little legs pumped faster, carrying him across the damp grass toward the dog. "Max, come!" Emily called, her voice cracking with an edge of panic she tried to hide. The dog didn't move, didn't even glance her way. His ears twitched forward, then back. His entire body was coiled, muscles rippling beneath his black and tan coat. His short tail, usually wagging when Lucas was near, was completely still. "Jack," Emily said, louder now. "Jack, he's not responding." Jack looked up, spatula frozen in mid-air. His face went pale. "Lucas, stop! Stay there!" But Lucas kept going, his small arms outstretched, his face lit up with pure, innocent joy. "Doggy! Hug Doggy!" Max lowered his head another inch. His breathing changed, deeper, more focused. Every line of his body screamed tension, like a coiled spring about to release. Emily took a step forward, then stopped. Her mind raced through scenarios, each one more terrifying than the last. If she ran, would Max see it as aggression? If she shouted, would it startle him into action? "Don't run," Jack said quietly, reading her thoughts. "If we run, he might—" "I know," she whispered. Her whole body was trembling. Lucas was 3 feet away now, 2 feet. Max's eyes narrowed. His head dipped even lower, almost touching the ground.
A sound started in his throat, not a growl, but something else, something Emily had never heard before. "Please," she whispered to no one, to God, to the universe, "please don't let him hurt my baby." 1 foot away.
Lucas reached out his tiny hand, his fingers splayed, ready to grab a handful of fur. "Pet doggy," he babbled. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, imagine how Emily felt. Drop a like if you're invested in this story. I read every comment and love hearing your thoughts. And then, movement. A flash of scales in the grass, right where Max was staring. Max exploded into action. No bark, no warning, just pure, devastating speed. He launched himself forward, his jaws opening wide, and Emily screamed, a sound ripped from the deepest part of her soul, raw and terrified and utterly helpless. But Max didn't go for Lucas. His massive body collided with the toddler, yes, but it was a shove, a hard bump from his shoulder that sent Lucas tumbling backward onto the soft grass. The baby's face crumpled, his mouth opening in a wail of surprise and hurt feelings. Max's jaws snapped shut on the ground where Lucas had been standing, on the snake that had been coiled there, hidden in the tall grass, its triangular head raised, its body tensed to strike. The Rottweiler's teeth clamped down with brutal efficiency. He whipped his head once, twice, 3 times, and the snake's body went limp, severed nearly in half. Time seemed to stop. Lucas was crying on the grass, more startled than hurt. Jack had dropped the spatula and was running, his face a mask of terror and confusion. Emily couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she'd just seen. Jack scooped Lucas up, his hands frantically checking the baby's arms, legs, neck, anywhere a snake might have bitten. "He's fine," he said. "He's fine. He's just scared." Lucas reached for Emily, his face red and wet with tears. "Mama, Mama, up!" She took him, crushing him against her chest, and only then did she see it clearly. The snake. A copperhead, thick-bodied and venomous, its distinctive hourglass pattern visible even in death. Its fangs were extended, its mouth frozen open. It had been less than 6 inches from where Lucas had been standing. Emily's knees buckled. Jack caught her, held both of them up. "Oh, my God," she whispered. "Oh, my God! Oh, my God!" Max stood over the dead snake, his sides heaving, his mouth still curved in a snarl. Blood flecked his muzzle, the snake's blood, not Lucas's, never Lucas's. Slowly the tension drained from his body, his ears relaxed, his tail gave a tentative wag. He looked at Lucas, then took a careful step forward. "Max," Jack said softly, but there was no command in it, just awe. The massive dog approached slowly, deliberately, as if afraid he might have hurt the child when he'd shoved him aside. He lowered himself to the ground, making himself as small as a 120-pound dog could be, and crept forward on his belly. Lucas, his tears already drying, saw his friend and reached out. "Doggy," he said again, but this time his voice was softer, almost reverent. Max crawled the last few feet and gently, so gently, rested his huge head on the grass between Lucas's legs. The baby leaned forward and wrapped his small arms around the dog's neck, burying his face in the thick fur. "Good doggy," Lucas murmured. "Good Max." Emily sank to her knees beside them, one hand on her son, one hand on the dog who had just saved his life. Tears streamed down her face, hot, grateful, overwhelming tears that she couldn't have stopped if she'd tried. "I'm sorry to Max," she whispered, running her fingers through his fur. "I'm so sorry I doubted you. I'm so sorry I was afraid." The dog's tail thumped once against the ground. His dark eyes, ancient and wise, met hers. There was no judgment there, no resentment, just simple, uncomplicated love. Jack knelt beside them, his own eyes wet. "All this time," he said hoarsely, "he knew something was wrong. That's why he wasn't eating, why he was watching. He knew." "He was protecting him," Emily said. Her voice broke on the words. "All day he was protecting him." They stayed like that for a long time, the four of them huddled together in the grass as the sun began to set. Jack eventually called animal control to remove the snake and check the yard for more. The officer who came told them copperheads often traveled in pairs, that they'd been having reports of them all week.
"You're lucky," the officer said, looking at Max with new respect. "That dog probably saved your kid's life. Copperhead bite to a toddler that small might not have survived the trip to the hospital." After he left, Emily made a decision. She went inside and came back with Max's favorite blanket, the one he'd had since he was a puppy. She spread it out on the grass near the flower bed. "This is Lucas's guardian spot," she told Jack. "This is where Max watches over him." From that day forward, whenever Lucas played in the yard, Max took up position on that blanket, not hovering, not anxious, just present, watchful, ready. And Emily never worried again. She'd learned something profound that day. Fear had made her blind. She'd been so focused on what Max could do, on his strength and his teeth and his guard dog instincts, that she'd failed to see what he would do. He would protect. He would guard. He would lay down his life without hesitation for the tiny human he'd chosen as his charge. Not because he was trained to, not because he was commanded to, but because love, true, deep, instinctive love, transcends species, transcends training, transcends fear. That night, after Lucas was asleep in his crib, Emily and Jack sat on the patio and watched Max patrol the yard one last time before bed. The dog moved with purpose, checking every corner, every shadow, ensuring his territory was safe for the small person sleeping inside. "Do you think he understands how much he means to us, how grateful we are?" Jack smiled, reaching for her hand. "I think he knows exactly what matters, and it's not our gratitude." Emily followed his gaze to the baby monitor, where they could see Lucas sleeping peacefully, one small hand clutching a stuffed animal. "It's him," she whispered. "It's him," Jack agreed. And somewhere in the darkness, Max settled onto his bed by the back door, his vigil complete for another day, his purpose as clear as it had always been: to guard, to protect, to love. The chosen guardian of a little boy who would grow up never knowing a world where someone wasn't watching over him, keeping him safe, willing to face any danger that came his way. Max, the Rottweiler who had chosen his child and would protect him with everything he had, until his last breath.
This story reminds us that sometimes the things we fear most are actually our greatest protections. If this touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Do you have a story about a pet who protected you or someone you love? Share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it.